This is the CHGO Cubs podcast. Corey is off today. We have Cody and Ryan filling in. Look at these guys. Look at us. Look at the trio we got going on right now. Jam-packed show. Lots to talk about. I'm going to do a quick, just week recap of the box scores, some introduction to the topics, and get straight into this. Don't want to waste any time here. So Cubs 21-14. I feel great. They started off Monday beating the Mets. Taillon went 7 innings. Tuesday, Cubs lost 2-4. Assad, who we'll talk about today, 5 innings that day. But Dansby's error preceded ALLCITY's 3-run home run and preceded Cody's meltdown on the show, which we can maybe talk about that. On Wednesday, Cubs 1-0 shutout. Shota phenomenal yet again. I believe he's still the major league ERA leader. Thursday, Cubs blow another game, 7-6. Brown goes almost 5 innings, but walks 5. Cubs lose in extras. Friday, Brewers beat the Cubs 3-1. Wisniewski almost goes 7 innings, looks phenomenal. Bullpen blows it again. Saturday, Cubs win 6-5. Taillon goes deep again with 6 innings. Sunday, Cubs just win 5-0. Clean game, stress-free game. My type of Sunday games. Assad goes 6, showcasing like Taillon, like Shota, just deep starts, no nonsense starts. Morel walked 3 times, hit a home run this series, looks great. Dansby Swanson has been up and down, but he got off the bench and hit a home run today. Lots to talk about. So we'll talk about Dansby, we'll talk about Morel, we'll talk about Mervis being sent down and who's going to get the majority of his plate appearances. Cade Horton made his AAA debut. Maybe we'll see how much time we have. We'll touch on that. But first, Cody, Ryan, Cubs are 21-14. Assad shoved yet again. Dansby showcased great defense, 2 great plays on Sunday after coming off a very controversial week for him, and he did hit a home run. Cody, for you, how are you feeling? Are you feeling okay? You had a very a mad week at times, which I understand because I did too.
Well, very big of you to point out my meltdown I had earlier this week related to Swanson's error. After I went to battle for you for who you got in the Slack channel literally a half hour ago. Okay.
Right. Listen, Cody, you're my guy. You know I always go to bat for you. I just had to point that out. Okay.
And listen, what I was gonna say is that, the one thing that Dansby Swanson, in my opinion, for the most part, has done in his Cubs tenure is show up for the big games. I know last September that you can argue that he did not do that, but there's a lot of reasons why that team didn't make the playoffs, and it's not just because they played bad in September, in my opinion. But I think so far this year, despite his slow start offensively and even, defensively, I feel like in big moments he showed up. There was a game against the Astros. What would that have been last week? They won 4-3 that game, and he hit a 3-run homer. He was the reason they won the game. They almost got no hit against the Mets this week. Who got the first hit of the game in the 8th inning? Dansby Swanson. Like
that's a good point.
I am someone who holds him to a very, very high standard. Not just, it is largely because he does make a lot of money, but he's proven for years and years that he's a really good baseball player. So whenever he's not doing the things that, in my opinion, he should at least be doing, I'm going to be mad about it. So that's why I was so mad about him messing up that routine play that ruined a 1-2-3 inning for Albert Alzolay, who had been struggling this year. That said, today, in a game that, in my opinion, it was a tone setter for the season in a way, because I think this division is going to be neck and neck all year between Milwaukee and the Cubs. Perhaps the Reds are part of that too. But for the most part, with these two teams, I think it's going to be neck and neck all season. And I think today he helped set the tone for the Cubs moving forward. I don't want to say that a game in May is a must-win game, but considering all the injuries the Cubs have and the fact that Justin Steele didn't pitch in this series or Shota Imanaga didn't pitch in this series, and you won this series, I think it's a huge confidence boost for this team and a huge confidence boost for this fan base as well from a fan perspective. And Dansby Swanson showed up defensively today, not only making the routine plays, but also making those 2 defensive plays that you pointed out. He hit the homer. I tweeted after he made that first defensive play, like maybe this is something that helps him break out of the slump today. He hit a liner right to third base in a second at bat that ended up being a double play because Morel he was too far off the bag. but he's to me, it was even a little bit of a sign. It's like he hit the ball hard, like on a line somewhere, and then he hits a homer in his next at bat to add insurance. Considering how the bullpen has been in recent weeks, no lead is safe with this team. It feels like at times. So for him to hit that homer late, I felt like only made it a little bit easier. And as I've said many times, when it comes to the bullpen, you got to score runs too. That's why I was mad at how the Friday game ended, with ALLCITY being in the game, but you had no other choice but to go to him. But at the same time, you got to score runs. They didn't score runs. They scored runs, and you see Yency Almonte go out there, shove 2 innings, and Daniel Palencia dotting 101 miles per hour multiple times in the 9th inning. They made it look easy because it was 5-0, not a 1-0 game. So when you score a lot of runs like that, it's easier to win ball games, man. So
makes our lives easier.
Yeah,
I mean, Ryan,
my life easier too.
It makes all of our lives easier. Ryan Counsell has talked about Dansby. He's the big topic. I know Assad pitched well, and Taillon's doing very well, and he even compared him to Shota. But going into today, a lot of the talk was on Swanson's defense and offense. What did Counsell have to say, if anything? And what's your take on his last 2 weeks? And I guess if a fan came to you and asked you, since you're within the clubhouse and dugout, should you be worried about Dansby? What would be your response?
Well, I guess defensively, we could start there to answer that question. And no, I said on the show last week that no, I'm not worried about. I wasn't worried about Dansby defensively. Did he have obviously some misplays that you would expect him to make? Did he have some bad throws that you could expect him to not have? Like, yeah, but again, I said it on the show during the week. Like, I expect that we sit here at the end of the 162 and Dansby Swanson is firmly in the Gold Glove conversation, if not leading it, right? That's what I expect Dansby Swanson to be. So even though he's had some uncharacteristic mistakes out there that with his offensive struggles maybe get a little bit magnified, and especially the fact that he's got the biggest contract on the team. Like all that's always going to magnify errors and mistakes. Defensively, I don't worry about Dansby Swanson because he can go out and make plays like he did today. This quote from Craig Counsell pregame on Saturday kind of asked about the team, but then like a little note on Dansby Swanson and talking about his defense from Craig Counsell. Dansby's a good fielder. I'm really happy Dansby Swanson is our shortstop. We're in good shape there. Has he made a couple throws that he didn't want to make? Yeah, I don't think that'll continue. I think that's a pretty safe thing to say going forward and a pretty good place to put our stock in. I feel really good about that. So it's kind of just echoing what I've said. Is just that like you can acknowledge that he's made some mistakes. You should acknowledge that he's made some mistakes that he shouldn't make, but mistakes happen. And over the course of another 5 months of this season, right? Like Dansby Swanson's going to prove again that he's a very good fielder, elite defensive shortstop. So yeah, defensively, I don't worry about him. Offensively, like you guys said, the home run was big. Maybe that helps him break out a little bit. I know you and Corey have talked about it, Brendan, that Dansby is not on a World Series contending team like Dansby Swanson is probably not one of your best hitters. His biggest value is going to come from that elite defense, that elite glove, and obviously the leadership qualities that he brings to the clubhouse and on the field. But for now, he is, especially with Bellinger and Seiya, he's kind of tasked with being one of the better hitters on the lineup, and he just hasn't produced, and that's a concern. But again, it is early in the season still, so we're a month into the year now, and the hope is that he's continuing to tinker with things, or whether it's obviously going back, watching video, seeing what the dad is telling him, like figuring out a way to get out of the slump that he's been in. But like I said, like the home run today was a good sign. It was necessary to extend the lead a little bit, give the bullpen a little bit of breathing room, and hopefully it's he goes from here and starts to get things figured out. But also we have the reinforcements are coming to the lineup where maybe a little less pressure is on Dansby to perform, and hopefully that's another thing that helps him kind of
I think so.
Continue to get to a better level offensively. But again, defensively, like I said, never was concerned about it. I'm not concerned about it. Like you could be frustrated when he makes mistakes for sure. I understand that, but like in the long run, I expect we'll be here at the end of September saying, yeah, he's probably going to win another Gold Glove, or he has a shot at it.
I see Cody has a beer bat over here, so we'll get to that. We'll touch on defense, do the beer bat, come back, finish this discussion on offense that leads into some of the other roster moves and lineup decisions that are going to be coming in the next week. But before we do the beer bat, Dansby's defense, the question was posed, given that he's made some uncharacteristic plays and errors, even the ones, for example, on Saturday that kind of soft toss second base to complete the game. What is the concern level for defense for him going forward? And is this representative of immediate decline? My response to that would be, I would be concerned if his range was obviously looking worse and grading worse. We can go and we can see that range. That is not true. I would also be concerned if his arm was rating worse than last year, and if he were not making throws, which he has made several times, deep in that third base shortstop hole, which he has done even today on that backhand sliding grab. So because he's not showing differences in the max effort plays, you have to consider that these are kind of random blips. At the same time, they do pose questions of why this is happening, but still having those questions doesn't mean that this is something that's going to continue. And in the bulk sum, despite those uncharacteristic plays, he's still grading almost in the 90th percentile for outs above average. Even at Dansby's quote unquote worse, which appears to have been the tone for the past week, he's still grading better than most shortstops, which, to your point, Ryan, bodes well for the future. And by the end of the year, if you were to bet what is more likely, the likely outcome is he comes back to norm and he grades as still one of, if not the unequivocal best shortstop in Major League Baseball. I don't think there's enough evidence to say he's going to decline defensively right away. I understand the frustration. I understand some of the errors are in timely situations that lead to blown saves and blown 6th, 7th inning leads. I understand that, but you take a step back. And if you want to worry about that projecting his immediate decline, I don't think there's enough justification for that yet.
I personally, I'm not, as much as I've complained about his defense, I've never been worried about if he's declining, if that part of his game is declining. I've been worried.
You would be surprised the replies and questions we get. And I'm
not surprised. I've seen a lot of it. Someone told me yesterday that he was overrated and overpaid and all this shit. And it's like, all right.
He's been getting J-Hay comparison.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Someone in our chat the other day said something along the lines of comparing it to Jason Hayward. And, you know,
I understand the frustration. Dansby has made it very vocal that he wants to be the leader. He's bugging Jed to make moves, bringing back Belly on stage of Cubs Con. I understand he's bringing this on him, but there's still there's nuance to this discussion. Like the J-Hay comparison is just absolutely not true. Hayward was 26 years old, coming off one of his better offense performances, and Theo himself said the contract was motivated by an untapped offensive potential. Dansby is not motivated by that. If you scale by MLB inflation too, Dansby's contract in J-Hay times is 7 years for 110 to 120. So it's first off lower than Jason Hayward's, and second off motivated by completely different intentions. So I don't buy that J-Hay comparison whatsoever. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, again, like that's kind of how I feel. I'll get mad if he doesn't make a routine play when he needs to make a routine play, but his bat is what's more concerning to me. But I've also think that there needs to be more time for it to play out for me to really get worried about it. People are just going back to September last year and just automatically thinking like that's what's happening. Just completely ignoring the fact that the first 10 to 15 games of the season, he was one of the hottest hitters on the Cubs roster. I know he's been in a slump since that road trip out to the West Coast. But again, just completely ignoring the first 10 to 15 games of the season.
And we'll talk about that.
Again, yes. Anyway,
What's your toast? I don't like when Luke calls it a dedication. It's a toast.
I agree.
Dedication. That's what they said back in the 1850s.
That's true. You're right about that. Good point.
I
Ryan.
will, man, there's a lot of guys I could give this to today. I think I got to give it to the ass man, though. The ass man shoved on Cinco de Mayo. Shout out. All right. Like, they needed
that was
him
my
to come
favorite
out.
thing. The McNugget of the game. Javier Assad, the first Mexican-born pitcher to pitch on Cinco de Mayo. I love that.
Yeah, I mean, he was just born to shove on Cinco de Mayo, and I will say the defense really helped him out a lot today. But I won't take anything away.
Whose
from
defense helped him out? Whose defense? Which player?
Dansby's and Michael Bush's defense.
And Michael Bush too,
and Mike Tauchman. Yeah, three guys specifically. But I thought overall, yeah.
All right. So are we going under 10 seconds here? What's your record this year?
I think my best this year is 9.69. Nice.
Okay. So wow, nice. Okay. So 9.69. Here we go. All right. I got the timer going. So I'll start it. I have a slow trigger. So we're good. All right. You ready?
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. Beer's touching the lip. Here we go. Here we go. It looks like a steady.
We're at 4,
stream.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
There it is. Ooh.
9.31.
Oh.
I got 9.74, so we'll go like right in the middle of that, about 9.5, 9.6.
There we go. I'll give it 9.
Cody.
Yeah, we'll do 9.59. How about that?
Yeah, we'll see what the guy who tweets the times out all the time says too. But
okay,
don't let the facts get in the way of a good story. I don't know when you guys actually started the timer.
He's the ultimate. He's the ultimate. Like he's the final word on like what the time.
Easy arbitrator. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, let's do this ad break here. We'll come back and talk about some of the offensive trends, get your guys' thoughts, and kind of set the context for this offensive discussion. First break here is from Illinois Pork Producers. It's grilling season. Get your pork. The International Society of Sports Nutrition recommends that people who are involved in a general fitness program or who are interested in optimizing their health eat low-fat, high-quality sources of protein, which include lean cuts of pork. Elevate your protein game with lean pork, a powerhouse of natural goodness. Savor the flavor, savor the gains, and celebrate any occasion by enjoying the best pork produced by Illinois pig farmers. From your sausage and bacon for breakfast to pulled pork or juicy chops hot off the grill, it's an entire season dedicated to pork and the people behind the product. This is paid for by the Illinois Pork Producers. Generations of commitment. Penrose Brewing, Geneva, Illinois. Seltz Ups, hard seltzers with real fruit, led by Lemon Seltz Up, a national gold medal winning hard seltzer with real lemons. I told Corey this last week. This is right up my alley, especially for the summer. I'm a big lemon guy. I need to check out these seltzers right here. They created their unique twist on a lemon shake-up with a house-made hard seltzer and pureed lemons for a throwback to warm weather and county fairs. Penrose is available at your local beverage retailer or visit Penrose's taproom in Geneva. For more information, go to penrosebrewing.com or follow them on social media at Penrose Brewing. Okay. So I'm going to show one graph here. It's going to lead into some of the discussion about the offense. It goes to the point about Christopher Morel's offensive stretch and what preceded some of their recent success. Now, what you're looking at here is this is not a complicated graph, by the way, even though it looks kind of complicated. And there's a lot of colors and everything over here, but it's not that complicated. So what you're looking at here is a running average of swinging strikes. Okay, how often they miss when they swing the baseball bat. And what you're looking at is Dansby Swanson is skyrocketing north. So his swinging strike rate in his last, 75 to 150 plate pitches seen is around 30%. Ian Happ is rocketing right by him, upwards around 22%. Now, if you put your eyes down this list, you're going to see a bunch of hitters: Morel, Amaya, Bush, Tauchman, Nico, but particularly you're going to see Christopher Morel in the tier of Bush, of Nico, of Tauchman, around 10 to 12%. And Morel's blue line has never rocketed north this season. He's been consistent since opening day in his ability to make contact. Now, this was something that was discussed prior to today's game as a good sign and a reason to project Morel's success. In the years past, specifically last summer, that swinging strike rate where we're seeing Dansby's kind of go north up, Morel was going even further north. He was going to the moon with his swinging strike rate. He's not showing that this year, which gives a lot of people confidence that this is not the same Morel we've been discussing for 2 years. In fact, this is quite a different player. This is one player maybe on the cusp of reaching that max potential we've talked about for 2 years.
Yeah, I think that's something we've noticed. Even when he was, going through that slump, I think it started at the end of that San Diego series, and then through Boston. When he was slumping and the results were pretty poor through that stretch, you could see that Morel was still getting the walks, right? The strikeout rate wasn't getting exorbitantly high. The chase wasn't changing much. You've mentioned it before too, Brennan. Like the contact rate was still high, especially like relative to what he's done in the past with the Cubs. So a lot of those like plate discipline things were still there. Like those signs were still there. You weren't seeing him like press to try to get a base hit or a home run. The plate discipline improvements you saw through the first couple weeks of the year, those all looked like they were still there. And now obviously he's had a much better week starting in that New York series against the Mets, and then continuing now through the Brewers. But like today, like 3 walks against Freddie Peralta, like
Yeah.
not like,
and those were close pitches too. Those weren't just
some,
like egregious walks.
Exactly. Some really, really good takes against someone who's probably the best starter on that Brewers rotation. You see that all still come through. So like he obviously had the RBI base hit later on in the game. But like those first 3 plate appearances walking against Freddie Peralta, like that was really, really impressive to me. Just again, because of it's a continuation of what you're seeing from him as far as plate discipline and approach at the plate, and just being willing to take a walk, right? Not feeling like he needs to swing at close pitches and try to get the bat on the ball and put the ball in play and get the base hit. Like being willing to take the walks, that's huge. So even he's I think overall the last week has been really good for him at the plate. When I think his OPS is like 11. It's like 1196 right now since the start of that New York series. So that huge sign from him. He's got the 4 home runs obviously over the week, but just it shows you that like even when here's also a quote from Craig Counsell. This was, I believe, after Saturday's game. He said, "Our offense has been a little quiet lately, obviously. Chris, just one swing of the bat, putting runs on the board. Friday, I guess, was a solo shot, but then 3 others with men on base, just getting runs on the board quick. Christopher's in a stretch right now. The homers, I think, for most guys come in bunches, and he's had a good week." So the homers, I mentioned it. The home runs was back-to-back games with it, 4 and 6 games. But then I go back to that plate approach, and that's what, like, for me, as far as having confidence in Morel, even when the results aren't there, is that you're still seeing the discipline, which is just a like markedly better. Like it is an improvement on what we've seen from him the first couple seasons when that wasn't always the case.
Look at the smile on Cody's face. He was smirking over there. This is one of the biggest emergences of the Cubs season, is having Morel, someone who might project as a cost controllable corner infielder at third base with immense power. This to me is something you and I, Cody, have been talking about for the past 2 years, with you and I hoping he would get chances at third base and then some, succeeding to this degree offensively.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of talked about when he was struggling too, that like his slump didn't make you feel like it was last year's slumps. Like he wasn't striking out a ton of at bats. The guy still made contact. He still took his walks. And, since the first game against the Mets where he hit that 2-run homer in the 9th inning to help them win the game, I mean, he's been on a tear. And I can sit here and admit that he's a streaky player. But I think even when he's not necessarily on a hot streak, he can still be a productive offensive player. It's just right. Like during the his slump or whatever, it was magnified because the offense in general was struggling and it didn't have Bellinger or Seiya Suzuki in the lineup. So it's kind of like what you're saying earlier about Dansby and just the defense or whatever. You kind of got to step out a little bit with the magnifying glass.
Which is hard to do at times, because
when
we're watching the games every day, it's easy to kind of get lost in it, and I get lost in it too.
Yeah, and I don't blame people for jumping to those conclusions. Like, I've done it before with other guys. Hell, I guess you can argue that I've done that with Dansby this year in some ways. But I think with Morel, yeah, this is exactly this first month and 5 days of the season. This is exactly what I've like dreamed of seeing from him.
Same.
You know,
And then some. This is beyond the dreams I had.
Right. Like he's even been good at third base. I still don't understand why they're bringing Madrigal in late in the game. I don't get it. They won today. I'm not complaining about it, but he's been good enough at third base that I just don't think it warrants that anymore, you know? And so he's improved defensively and he's helping them win games with his bat. He helped them win yesterday's game with the home run that he hit. He was literally the only reason they scored a run on Friday. Yeah. He helped win that game against the Mets, the first or second game of that series, the go-ahead homer. Like he's been a huge factor on top of the fact that, you know, very beginning of the season, he was red hot to start the year. It's just when you see the progress that he's made since he made his major league debut 2 years ago, man, it's not something you see from all players, man. Like he legitimately has improved every single year. I said this going into the season. Last year, he played less games and hit more homers than he did the year before. So there was reasons to believe that he could like continue to improve, you know,
working yourself up. I'm with you. I'm with you.
Someone's got to hype themselves up. No one else is going to do it.
What are you talking about? I can join your hype. You know, that's not fair whatsoever.
He's just a fun player, and like it's fun to see guys develop. Like this is, you know, we could sit here and complain about, you know, the Cubs not spending money on all these all-stars and stuff, guys that we wish they would have signed. And yes, there's plenty of reason to why we should probably criticize the front office for that. But at the same time, when it comes to player development, scouting, and all these things, the Cubs have been, until the last handful of years, the Cubs hadn't been very good at that either. To see them find this guy who wasn't ever a highly touted prospect, give him an opportunity 2 years ago and watch his growth over the last 2 years. It's fun. It makes fans want to like cheer for the guy, you know? So I've enjoyed it.
He's batting cleanup consistently, even through those poor productive weeks, and that points to Counsell's trust in him too, and it points to the process that they're willing to go through to let Morel adapt and stay comfortable, which I think is huge. To that point about the Cubs scouting well, Mike Tauchman's another example who has been instrumental in staying atop the division with Seiya out and Bellinger out, and those two should be back later this week. But I do want to bring this up. If we look at how the Cubs can maximize their lineup right now, especially with Matt Mervis being down, the one question I want to see Counsell answer this week is what are they going to do with the outfield, even when Bellinger and Seiya come back? But it's more specifically, what are they going to do with that DH spot and that first base spot? I know you guys will probably talk about Seiya and Bellinger upcoming weeks, so we can save that for this week's podcast. But right now, what you're looking at is a graph of just exit velocity over time. So this is average or running average over their last 25 batted balls. If you look, which I didn't actually expect, Dansby Swanson over the past 2 weeks has actually led the Cubs in exit velocity. That I did not realize that. So even though he's whiffing at rates that we've never seen and at rates he's never shown in his career, he's still hitting the ball hard. It's just on the ground a lot. So I didn't expect to see that. Second is Morel. You see that curve starting to go back up. The hard hit rate obviously is noticeable with the home runs and hard hit singles and whatnot. Happ is nosediving. So Happ is whiffing more and nosediving down with exit velocity. But also, if you look in the bottom, you see Michael Busch and Mike Tauchman. And Tauchman's been great, batting second. Matt Mervis has just been sent down. The roster, the lineup is going to get back to full health soon. The question I have for you, Ryan, is given, you know, you talking with Counsell and hearing what they're doing with Busch and Tauchman, and now recently with Patrick Wisdom back on this lineup, and Craig Counsell said he's going to get opportunities to hit. How do you see them mixing and mashing with Tauchman, with Busch, and with Wisdom once Seiya and Bellinger are both back? Hopefully Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
Yeah, so in like you mentioned, Wisdom, and obviously they optioned Matt Mervis down Saturday. So Wisdom got the start at DH yesterday and today. I expect him to get opportunity, especially against lefties in that DH spot. But you mentioned Talkman, and Talkman has obviously been with those two guys out. With Seiya out, obviously he moved in and was starting a lot of games in right field. But then when Bellinger goes down, like he's been out there pretty much every day. And playing pretty well and producing pretty well and being one of the few guys that's been a little bit more consistent over the last couple of weeks. I think my expectation is that, Talkman, like Bellinger and Seiya are your starting outfielders. Like you brought him in, like Seiya's your starting right fielder. Bellinger's like you brought him in to be your starting center fielder.
Could you see him though go to first base? There's been some. I mean, Bush has looked great defensively on fielding plays, but some of the scoops have been questioned by fans.
I think it's possible, but I also think I don't think it's because of anything Bush would do or has done or whatever. Because I do think they still want to give Bush has been fine, I think, at first base, and they do want to give him more run if he's going to be the first baseman for the future, right? However long that is, I don't see them removing him out of first base right now. But
what are you laughing at over there, Cody? You got a little smirk.
I'm laughing at Donnie's comment. He says that. Or Carter's comment. I'm sorry. Brennan's graph looks like it's my niece's fridge art.
You know what? I'm trying my best, Donnie. I'm trying to make a colorful graph over here. Whatever. Sorry to cut you off, Ryan. It's Donnie's fault. That's okay.
Yeah, Donnie. So back my expectation is that yes, Bellinger and Seiya are your right field or your outfielders along with Happ. Talkman. Yes, it's hard to remove him from the lineup when he has been playing so well. There are going to be opportunities for him to DH. I also think, Bellinger and Seiya both, I would expect maybe more rest days for those guys. Whether that's moving into DH, whether that's, whether that's just full on rest days. I do expect a couple more of those when they do return, just to obviously help them ease their way back into the lineup. Michael Bush could get an off day here and there. He struck out 4 times today, just at the plate, not looking nearly as good as he did during that road trip when he was 5 straight games at the homer, 6 straight game, whatever it was.
Yeah.
So maybe he gets a little bit of a break and you can move Bellinger into first base. There's going to be ways for Counsell to mix and match and keep this lineup, optimize it a little bit. I don't. Once Bellinger and Seiya are really back and fully ready to go, I don't know that Talkman will be starting every day. At full health, he's this team's 4th outfielder. But I do think in the meantime, they'll continue to find ways to get him in games, whether that is playing outfield and giving guys a break, whether that's DHing against righties, or however that shakes out. Because obviously, Pete Crow-Armstrong is going to go back down when Pico Armstrong and Alexander Canario are both likely to go back down when Suzuki and Bellinger do come back. So
I forgot Canario was even on the team.
Yeah, exactly.
I haven't seen him in a week, I feel like.
So Togman's your 4th outfielder, and I do expect Counsell, even if it's not him starting every single day in the outfield, I expect Counsell to figure out ways to keep him in the lineup, to keep him in the field more often than not. I think that's how you look at it.
Cody, do you treat Bush's first base defensive development the same way you treat Morel's?
Yeah, I don't have immense expectations like I do for Swanson or Horner. Yeah. So I guess for me, Bush, I don't want to call it a roller coaster because I don't think it's been as big of a roller coaster as Morel's was. To start the year, Morel was definitely a massive. It was a massive yikes at the beginning of the year, right? I think with Bush, his biggest issue has been obviously the scoops at first base on a few bad throws. I think he's had some issues with knowing how far to go on ground balls to his right side.
Yeah, definitely.
But I think he's also made really good plays. I think he's made all the routine plays. It's not bad enough or good enough to make me think that he should be playing there for for the next 5 years or not be playing there for the next 5 years. Obviously, the bat has cooled off since mid-April, since they went on that West Coast trip. But he's a rookie, and as we've seen with other rookies, they go through streaks of the league adjusting to them. And I felt like maybe he was breaking out of it going into the weekend because I thought he played pretty well against the Mets, but he struck out 4 times today against Freddie Peralta, who I thought he matched up kind of well against because he'd been hitting fastballs really well all season. And Freddie Peralta throws his fastball like 52% of the time. So I thought it was a good matchup for him. He struck out 4 times, and 3 of them were against Peralta, I believe. So, as far as defense with Busch, though, to me, it's all about it, and it's all about how the same thing with what I say about Morel and how he just needs to get the reps. I think I said this a few days ago to Kevin on Friday that if it was August, September, and, I think players struggling offensively might play a part in this as well, but I'm more open to having Busch DH more towards the end of the year and putting Bellinger at first base and letting whether it's Tauchman or PCA play center, depending on who's ever playing better, right? As we've seen, things fluctuate, things change immensely, right? And I say that because by then, at least he's gotten, 2, 3, 4 months of consistent play at first base, that by then you're trying to put out your best defensive and best offensive lineup at that time. Who knows what the roster is going to look like in August and September? I don't know. We all kind of think Shaw could get called up. I know there's people that don't want PCA to go back to Iowa, but it feels like he probably will. I don't know. But I do know that with Busch, it's the same way with Morel to me in terms of he's got to continue to get those reps if they do want him to be that future first baseman. Mm-hmm. But I obviously think Bellinger's the better defensive first baseman than him. Yeah. But I think if you can play Bellinger in the outfield for as long as you can, I think that benefits the team overall. I think that's just where you're going to get the most value from him.
Yeah. Let's do this quick ad break here, come back. A lot of comments in the chat about the bullpen. So we can talk about the bullpen in context of the rotation. Hendricks did have a rehab start. We can talk about what that means for the bullpen and how we see the next 2 weeks kind of shaping up. So quick ad break here. Some beers can say they're brewed for baseball. Only Blue Moon is brewed by baseball. Beer and baseball just go together, and no beer goes better than the one that was literally born in a ballpark. Blue Moon, for me, is the perfect pairing with weekend Cubs baseball. It's as bright as the blooming green ivy we're seeing in Wrigley Field right now. It's best served with its signature orange garnish to showcase its beautiful hazy color. So bring the ballpark to you with Blue Moon Belgian-style wheat ale. It's one of a kind every time. Get Blue Moon delivered by visiting get.bluemoonbeer.com/CHGO to see your delivery options. That's get.bluemoonbeer.com/CHGO. Blue Moon, made brighter. Celebrate responsibly. Blue Moon Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. Baseball season is officially underway, heading into the middle of May, so don't miss your chance to add your favorite players from the diamond in your prize picks entries, whether it's strikeouts, RBIs, or first inning runs. Take your pick of more or less and add them to your prize picks entry today. Prize Picks now offers Apple Pay for quick and easy deposits into your account this baseball season. Let's say you think Dansby Swanson will hit yet another home run tomorrow. Well, use Prize Picks to win some money. Go to prizepicks.com/CHGO and use code CHGO for a first deposit match up to $100. That's prizepicks.com/CHGO and use code CHGO. Pick more, pick less. It is that easy. Okay.
That easy.
That easy. What's not easy is how the Cubs will maneuver their rotation once Steele is back, which is going to be on Monday. So by the time you're hearing this, Steele might be warming up on the mound. Kyle Hendricks had a rehab start, if you want to think like that, in Tennessee. Did pretty well. I believe he finished around 4 innings with 6 strikeouts. I saw the video. I'm like, oh, this changeup looks good. The fastball looks good. There will come a point in time in the next week where decisions will have to be made. And there may be a point in the season where Assad, despite him going deep into games, may not be every fifth day. Not because Assad doesn't deserve it, which he does, but because Craig Counsell and the pitching staff want to preserve innings and not fatigue their staff as it was last September. So, Ryan, I want to pose it to you because you're around Tommy Hotovy and the pitching staff. How do you see the Cubs maneuvering Steele, Hendricks, Assad, Brown, and what effect do you think this is going to have on the bullpen in the next week or two?
Yeah. Well, so Steele's I think is still last we heard he's in line to start Monday. So
I wasn't wrong about that.
Yeah, no.
In my brain, I'm like, I think I heard Monday. We'll just go with that.
In line to start Monday. So the series opener against San Diego. I think directly, you're looking at either Wisniewski or Ben Brown would move out of the rotation. Obviously, Tyone, Imanaga, those guys aren't going anywhere. And Javier Assad's pitched so well that he has kind of earned his spot in the rotation right now. He was at 1.66 ERA, I think we said.
Yeah, it's nuts. He's going 6 innings now too, so he's going deeper. Yeah.
So he shouldn't be going anywhere. He should be sticking in there for now. I think you're looking at Ben Brown or Wisniewski, one of those two guys, likely moving to the bullpen. I think those two guys have pitched well enough that you're not looking at them going down just yet. And considering the fact that the bullpen needs impact arms right now, guys that can either give them effective length or just effectiveness in general. I think both those guys would suit that bullpen pretty well and helping out. But yeah, you move forward. Hendricks, I believe, is throwing another rehab start on Tuesday. And then assessing from there. Not a super clear idea of when a return would be. Maybe however many couple more weeks could be. Not super clear on when what his possible return date is. You mentioned he had a little bit more success down there in that rehab start.
He was back throwing a bullpen Sunday at Wrigley. I'm not sure what that means, but he was back in Chicago.
Yeah, I think just an in-between start, an in-between start bullpen to kind of get ready for the start on Tuesday, I think I said.
He was there Friday, too. We saw him walk out to the bullpen when we got there for Friday 120 Club.
Did you scream at him?
I definitely waved and gave him a good old salute.
A salute. All right, that's good. Yeah. I hope he saw it.
Yeah, he was back. Salute. He was back in town, getting evaluated and stuff, and doing some activities with the team. But yeah, him, Jordan Wicks, just not a clear idea on when either of those two guys.
What is the update on Wicks? Has there been anything in the last week?
Yeah, the last one that we got was he was playing catch. He started playing catch, I believe, in Boston, or not in Boston, in New York. And he was playing long toss yesterday.
So nothing immediate within the next 10 days, you think, unless he exceeds that timeline? I
think it's looking at mid to late May.
Okay.
So still a little bit of ways away for him. But yeah, for those two guys, once those I think the expectation now is that Hendricks would be ready to return before Wicks is. And Hendricks is again, my expectation is going to get another chance to start. Going to get however long a leash is going to get another chance to start. Wicks comes back. He hasn't relieved before. He's not been a reliever since the Cubs drafted him.
So what does that mean for Assad then? Because that's five guys right there.
Well, there you go. That's the issue. Because even when Kyle does come back, obviously the simple answer to that is okay, whoever didn't get moved out of the rotation between Brown and Wisniewski, maybe they go down to or that other one probably gets moved out of the rotation to make room for him, right? Then Wicks comes back, and now you do have another problem to. It's not even a problem because you have a lot of starters you could use at that point. So just another issue as far as roster construction. Does someone get sent down? Does someone else move to the bullpen? I don't know. I think you mentioned it that maybe there's a point where Assad does move to the bullpen to preserve the arm a bit, to limit his workload a bit, to make sure he's ready to go later in the season. It's definitely an issue that just doesn't really have a clear answer right now. I think when you're healthy, right? When this team is fully healthy, Justin Steele, Jameson Tyone, and Shota Imanaga are your top three starters. Kyle Hendricks, at least for now, is, top 3 starters that aren't going out of the bullpen that aren't leaving the rotation is how I should put it. Kyle Hendricks, for as long as that would last, like, he's going to get opportunities to start, and then you mix and match from there. For now, again, so like there's not a clear answer, especially when it comes to Assad. But I also think, these, we talk about it all the time, but these things kind of have a way of working themselves out, because underperformance could happen, right? Like injuries, we saw enough injuries in the first month of the year to know that, like, having the kind of depth around is good, because injuries happen. So long term, I couldn't tell you what the rotation will look like on September 1st right now. But I do know, like, I think healthy, you have your top 3 guys, and then you have a bunch of options to choose from. And I think that's a good thing for Counsell, just knowing how the baseball season makes managers have to kind of figure those things out.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think it's pretty clear. Like, and I'm not saying that I want this, but I think if I know the Cubs like I know the Cubs, which Ryan knows more what's actually going inside there than me, but based off my own knowledge of watching them and how they do things over the course of my life, I think they're going to put the ass man in the bullpen. And I think it's more so because of what Brennan said.
Though? At what point?
Well, if Kyle Hendricks is going to be back before Jordan Wicks, it will be when Jordan Wicks comes back. And
so within, let's say,
I
2
think
weeks.
Ben Brown is going to the bullpen whenever Kyle Hendricks comes back, and Assad will stay in. But when Jordan Wicks comes back, then I think Assad will go back to the bullpen.
Yeah.
And I've said this before, that I think Assad can be a better weapon in your bullpen, especially one that has had ups and downs. And, I largely say this just because he's shown to be very versatile. I don't want to keep repeating myself about it, but he showed that he could be really good middle relief. He showed in the second half of last year that you could use him in, high leverage spots too. And he also showed that he could start like you needed him to whenever, you had injuries in the second half of last year as well. So it's not that I'm advocating for it. It's just what I think they're going to do.
Yeah.
I think with Hendricks, the leash is going to be really short, but at the same time, I'm not going to root against Hendricks, because best case scenario, Hendricks comes back and he's more like but more like 2023 Hendricks. And then you have a massive problem. And the problem is for the league, not for you. Because if you get Hendricks right,
you have a good problem.
Yeah, you have a good problem.
A great problem.
It really would be a massive problem for the league, because you would have Steele, Imanaga, Tyone, Wicks, and Hendricks as your rotation. And when you want to give Assad a spot start because you want to rest a guy, that way they're not getting, too tired before the postseason, you can go to Assad, and who's shown that he can do that. You know what I mean? Like, I think some fans just aren't looking at it the same way that I might be looking at it. As much as I want Assad to stay in, let's just be real, though. Even as great as he was today, we highlighted all of the great defensive plays that the Cubs made. There were a few innings in there where he gave up some hard contact, and thankfully the defense played like the defense that it's supposed to play like. That helped him out. And we've talked about other guys who have struggled, have not had the luck factor go their way. I'm not saying that bad luck is on the way to Assad. I'm just saying that it's not like he's getting a ton of, he's not racking up a ton of strikeouts or anything like that. And the only reason I think that he can be better in the bullpen is A, he showed it, and B, I think if you say we need you to throw 1, 2, maybe 3 innings in the bullpen, that allows him to just kind of let it all out a little bit more. And, maybe the velo goes up a little bit. Maybe he's more effective that way. I don't know. That's just kind of how I view it. I don't know if I sound really stupid or not. I'm sure people think I do, but I'm just going off the eye test of last year. And I just thought that he was so good in the bullpen last year that saved so many dudes, saved David Ross so many damn times because of his ability to not only eat innings, but just be versatile and do whatever you ask him to do. Like Mark Leiter Jr. wasn't wrong, bro. He's one of the best pitchers in baseball. I'm convinced. I'm fully convinced. But that said, right now, though, I am like, I don't want to take him out. Like it's one of those things where if it ain't broke, don't change anything, you know?
Yeah. And there's people, this is a very nuanced discussion, because what you're saying, Cody, is that Assad deserves to stay in, but we want to avoid a scenario that we found ourselves in last August and September. That scenario was the entire staff, including the back end of the rotation, was taxed. So what is the best way to win now, while also giving your team the best shot to win more games in August and September? So there's nuance to this. Now, it may just end up working its way out, which is what Ryan's been saying.
Yeah, I don't remember if I mentioned this when I was talking, but obviously options play a part in this too, right? If you want, you want to keep Assad stretched out, like he's optionable. You could move him down to Iowa. I'm not advocating for that, right? He's been great. He's been one of the better pitchers in baseball.
Wicks in Iowa too, if you want.
Wicks could go down to Iowa, right? Like Wisniewski, if you want to keep him stretched out as a starter for starter depth, he could go stay stretched out in Iowa, right? Ben Brown, if that's your choice, could go back down to Iowa and stretch out. You have optionable players that will. I'm not saying I expect them all to be optioned or anything like that, but just like those are ways you could again play around with how your rotation construction is by using those options on guys. That's why they have them. So like again, I expect Ben Brown, I expect Hayden Wisniewski, I think they'd be great and serviceable out of the bullpen. Wisniewski came up and he was pitching 4 innings, right, when he first came back up out of the bullpen. So I could definitely see that as being a role for him. Again, I'm not advocating for Javier Assad to leave the rotation. I do think he's been very good. He's been outside of Imanaga, right, the most dependable starter on that staff.
He leads the staff in innings with 38.
There you go, 38. I think now after this game, he leads the National League in ERA, right? Because Imanaga technically isn't qualified. So he tops the ERA leaderboard in the National League. So, yeah, he's been a great starter. And I don't expect him to leave the rotation anytime soon, mind you. Like, this is obviously a question and conversation about what they do in the near to a little bit longer term future of this season of what they do with that rotation. But, he's been very, very good. And it's hard to say at all that he should leave the rotation. But, that's what Craig Counsell is getting paid to do, right? He's getting paid to make those decisions and make it him and Tommy Hotovy and Moskos and all those guys in the pitching group. Like, they're getting paid to figure out how best to utilize the rotation, the bullpen, the options, to make sure that these guys are not only around now to help you win games in the best way possible, but that they're here in September and in October to help you win games in the best way possible, and not, they're not tired and taxed by that.
Right now, the Cubs, their current innings leaders as well as ERA leaders goes as followed. Shota Imanaga, 0.78 ERA with a 2.7 FIP in 34 innings. Javier Assad, 1.6 ERA, 2.6 FIP in 38 innings. Jameson Taillon, who only is back from this past month, is 24 innings, a 1.1 ERA, which is phenomenal, and a 3.1 FIP. Then it starts to slide off. So you have Ben Brown in his piggyback bullpen games at 27 innings, which is quite a lot. He has a 4.2 ERA, very good still. Jordan Wicks, 23 innings, 4.7 ERA, a 4 FIP. Among those guys, excluding Hendricks, Jordan Wicks has the best K/9 of 11. So there's a trade-off where people may say, okay, you put Wicks down in Iowa, but what is the trade-off? And the trade-off could be the sacrifice of being under the watchful eye and development of Hotovy and Moskos, specifically because he's been throwing more sliders and curveballs this year, which is why maybe you're seeing more strikeouts. So if you put Wicks in Iowa, then to what degree will that hurt his development or slow down the natural progression of his comfort with those two pitches? I think that needs to be considered as well. So it's not an easy black or white answer here. Yes, on paper, Assad, and the likely scenario is Assad will stay in the rotation for the immediate future. There's no doubt about that. But there's going to come a point in time in June where these questions will start to surface because you get Hendricks maybe back and healthy and productive, and you get Wicks back healthy, continuing to show high strikeouts. And then you have to make a decision of what makes the best sense to win now in May, June, and going forward towards the back end of the season.
I see Tom's comment. It says, so what you're saying is that we should put Hendricks back in the rotation and mess it up. I'm just, again, not advocating, just saying that for anyone who thought it was a phantom IL stint, which me and Luke both thought it was a phantom IL stint. If it was, he wouldn't be in Tennessee making rehab starts right now, and with scheduled to come off the injured list in however many days, right? In my opinion, I don't think he would this soon, at least. So to me, has Hendricks earned the right to be in the rotation right now? No. Not
based on the start to his season. No.
Based off the start of the season. No. When you go off long-term success, the fact of everything that he's done for the organization, I don't have to list it. You all know what it is. Then yeah.
Well, it's a World Series championship to be precise.
Well, yeah. Again, I don't need to say it. Everyone knows. But yeah, he helped the Cubs win the World Series.
Win the World Series, correct.
Yeah,
yes.
Win the World Series.
Yeah.
And I know no one wants to hear that anymore because it's been 8 years and all this shit.
Well, hate to break it to you. The day I die, that will be my last words. Cubs win the World Series and I'm dead. That's it. I'll see the stars. Goodbye. That's going to be how I go out.
But
it's like I said, I said this earlier that not earlier today, like earlier in the season at some point. This decision would be a whole lot easier had Kyle Hendricks not had the season he did last year. Hell, he may not even be on the team right now had he not had the season he had last season. But the fact that he did have that, he came back from that injury to have a very productive season for the Cubs. It makes the decision to, 4 starts in now, 5 starts in, and
4 starts in.
Yeah, so that decision, or it makes it hard for someone like me who looks at this as not like a micro lens, but more on a macro level of I can't say he's washed right now because of what he did last year. I can't say he just doesn't have it. He's lost. I mean, clearly he looked like that on the mound when he was out there, but I can't say I take a step back and say, okay, but he had this awesome stretch coming back from that injury last year. I can't just throw that away because he struggled the first few starts and then now is on the IL. I can't say that he's completely lost and he's done. He should never pitch again because I can't wash that away what he did in 2023.
Yeah.
And it was that good too. The whiffs, the velocity, the changeup. So you're right. You can't just wash it away.
Right. For me, with Hendricks, what I'm saying, even though I don't think he's earned a right to go back in the rotation, it's still more about the fact that we know the Cubs would rather him go back in the rotation than go to the bullpen where he's pitched Ryan? 1 inning his entire carear.
I know he's pitched 1 game out of the bullpen. Is that right?
And it's the same thing with Jordan Wicks. So it comes down to who are they going to go with here in this current state? The good news is that they're 21-14, and hopefully by then your record is even better, and you have time to see, what you can do. It's not like you're 14-21 and the season's finished or looks like it's about to be finished. I understand you don't want to give games away at the same time too, because as we saw last year at the end and how that worked out, but I just feel like that's what the Cubs are going to do when Hendricks comes back and Wicks comes back. Is Assad will probably go back into the rotation. I personally would love to be proven wrong on that. I really would. I just think, and I think it has nothing to do with me believing in Kyle Hendricks or not. Assad has just been that good out of the rotation, and I just don't know what you do with Kyle Hendricks. But at the same time, it's a good problem to have.
Yeah.
The only thing is that you can't send Kyle Hendricks to Iowa, it's, and honestly, it'd be such a disrespectful thing for the Cubs to do, to just option him to Iowa and let him be depth there, So I don't really know what they're going to do. Hopefully it all just kind of plays out. Like Ryan said, with, baseball just kind of finds its way to play out. The thing I will push back on though for people who don't want to see Hendricks is that, again, it is a plus to get him back, considering the injuries this team has had, the pitching injuries we've seen across the league. If you can get him back and just be anything close to what he was last year for you, it will in fact be a problem for the league, because the pitching depth has been incredible this year. Because you lose Steele in the 5th inning of opening day, and this team is 21-14.
Right.
And Tyone didn't start the year.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what our super chat says right here from Michael Lorenz the second. This Cubs team will be a scary team when they get healthy and figure out the bullpen. 21-14, missing several key players and all the other issues right there to your point, Cody. So we're at the hour mark. Quick little brief point, and we'll sign off here at the end of the bullpen discussion. So when these guys do come back, Ben Brown to me seems like the one guy that can immediately get inserted into 7th inning plus roles. ALLCITY right now is all over the place. The slider shape is just simply not there. And it's actually a good contrast to how we're talking about Hendricks and how we're talking about Neris. Those two pitchers, commands all over the place. We've seen it with Neris killing all of us with these cardiac events and heart attacks over here. Hendricks similarly has very bad command, and that's why he's been maybe phantom IL'd. ALLCITY's different. The slider is not there. The slider that he was using to give him success is not there. The sharp break, you talked about this, Ryan, with Daniel Moskos and Tommy Ottavy. I told Corey to bring this up on your guys' show because please, I want to give you your credit for this. That 89 mile per hour slider that goes straight down, it is not there. If you look at the actual like movement profile, there's more sweep on the pitches. And ALLCITY himself said he does not have feel, and he knows the ball is moving differently than it did before. So in my mind, I'm putting ALLCITY back on the list. I'm hoping the back end of the rotation stabilizes. And what I want to try to figure out what makes the most sense is putting Ben Brown in those higher leverage situations. But the biggest con or disadvantage to that is you may take away some of his innings that lead to his development. So I don't know how I feel about that. I don't know if I should want him to be inserted into high leverage, but the sacrifice is, well, you may lose a longer inning guy in a time where you have uncertainty with Steele, Hendricks, and Wicks. I'm not sure how I feel about that right now.
Yeah. And just speaking of the bullpen as a whole, and that's I think that's in the topic of like every one of our chats is like improving the bullpen.
Well, it's killing us. I mean, we're blowing games and ruining everyone's nights.
It's fair.
My night,
but like
ruining my mental health. Yeah,
it's a very fair statement. And like obviously Friday with ALLCITY was the latest example of that. And even yesterday, right, with Keegan, almost nearly blowing it until Mark Leiter Jr. came in and was able to put out the fire. And I wrote about this Friday. I don't know if I've talked about it on the show, but like the simplest way of improving this bullpen right now, because a trade this early is
typically you don't see trades this early.
Yeah, not that
although
it
Miami
happen,
is
but it's
just
more on the rare side,
tearing things down.
So it's improving it by trade is more on the unlikely side right now on May 5th on Cinco de Mayo. So the simplest way to improve the bullpen in the next couple of weeks, right, is health, is getting your starters back healthy. You get Justin Steele back tomorrow. Because you look at it, Javier Assad may not have, we don't know. We won't know for sure whether he would have been on the opening day rotation or in the bullpen, right? Because before opening day, Jameson Tyone got hurt and that opened up an extra spot in the rotation. He may not have been in the opening day rotation, but he's been there the whole year and he's done great. Again, like if we're talking about between like Assad and Wicks when it gets to that time and Assad's still pitching like this, like I'd be on the train of keeping Assad on the rotation and sending Wicks to Iowa, right? Like I'd be fine with that. So back to my point, like Assad's been there the whole time. Ben Brown's been in the rotation for a couple of weeks now. Wisniewski's in the rotation for a couple of weeks now. That's 3 arms that could have been in the bullpen the whole first month of the year for various amounts of time have instead been in the rotation. So you get Justin Steele back on Monday. Again, you're probably pushing one guy to the bullpen, a guy you probably feel good about being in the bullpen. Kyle Hendricks, whenever he comes back, if he's in the rotation, then you're pushing another guy, one of those other guys back to the bullpen. So and then obviously like Drew Smiley coming back whenever that happens. I'd probably say like late May as well. And then Merriweather, you hope you get him back very soon after his 60
Any
days.
update on Merriweather? I haven't seen anything.
I don't think we've gotten one recently.
Okay.
The most recent one I remember was the most recent one I remember is that he was being shut down,
basically.
right? Like nothing new happening. I think he still has another month on the IL, like June 8th would be the day he could come out. So back to the overall point, like once health right now is going to be the best way to improve the bullpen, because you're adding guys like a Ben Brown who you feel really good about starting. I think the stuff has shown that it plays here, and he can get outs, he can get swing and miss, he can get strikeouts. Like you feel really good about that playing in the bullpen, right? When Smiley was maybe not the best reliever they had, but he was a pretty solid reliever, and you felt fine with him out there. Sometimes he may give up a run or whatever, but you felt pretty good about him when he was out there. Merriweather, whenever he comes back, like you feel like he's going to be one of your best bullpen arms. So, my main point is the best way right now, where trades, especially for higher leverage relievers, are rare. The best way to improve this bullpen right now, number one, is getting Adbert back to what he was doing last year, trying to figure out if you can get him there and whether he's closing or not.
Can you go talk with him?
Whether he's closing or not, like he's got to get back to pitching at a level they could trust him in the back end somewhere. But then health is going to be huge. Not only getting your starters healthy, but then getting some of those relievers healthy, because then you have more options for your bullpen that have instead been starting games for you. I think that's a big way to improve.
I think for me, as far as my feeling on the bullpen right now, I'm obviously with you on ALLCITY at this point. I feel, Boog kind of said it best either today, before the game today, or maybe it was yesterday. I can't remember. I heard him say it on the broadcast, though, like saying that he hasn't been good, but also unlucky. I think Friday was a great example of not being lucky. There wasn't any hard contact against him on Friday, but he's just not getting whiffs, and which opens up the possibility for chaos, as we like to put it sometimes on the show. And like Brennan, you know more about pitch shapes and all that shit than I do, man. The eye test just says he ain't getting it
more
done.
than you give yourself credit for. I will say
credit to you for giving me some sort of credit. So I mean, for me, when you just results based, he's not getting it done in high leverage. He wasn't getting it done as a closer. You can't option him. We learned. So, maybe he needs a break too. I don't know. At this point, I don't feel good with him in close games. My confidence of a Keegan Thompson resurgence has kind of dipped. However, I thought Andy Martinez had a good tweet yesterday about how when he has 2 to 3 days rest, his ERA and numbers overall are so much better than when it's like 1 day's rest. So is that one of those things that the Cubs can afford to have on their roster? Because, you need guys to pitch, and so whatever it is with Thompson, he's the reason that game was close yesterday. Because if he doesn't get blown up that one inning, then I don't think we have the anxiety in that ninth inning. Thankfully, Neris found a way to get out of it. But Almonte, the stock has risen. He looked great in his 2 innings today. Palencia continues to impress, throwing 101 multiple times today, dotted 100 a couple times today. Neris, I think they got to figure out the closer situation. I think he's just so much better as a, setup man, and I think we all agree with that, but his walk rate has been terrible. He can't walk guys. The reason they even get allowed a run yesterday is because he walked the leadoff hitter in the 9th inning. So yeah, they're just kind of somehow, some way finding a way to get by. Have they blown games? Yes. Has it given me immense amounts of anxiety? Yes. I'm hoping and praying that Palencia is a real thing. And last year I said something on the lines of like, if he throws gas like this guy could be a high leverage guy in 2024. He just didn't do enough in 2023 to give me confidence to actually believe it. and his first stint before he got sent back down wasn't great. Went back to Iowa. I don't know what happened. He comes back up. He's pumping 100, pumping 101, whatever they did. Credit to them. I don't know how it happened. It's a consistent 100, 101 miles per hour, dude.
I mean, today he was nasty.
Right. Yeah. So, they have some good things going on in the bullpen, but everyone has anxiety from it, is worried about it, thinks it sucks, because it goes back to what we were saying about the starting rotation. Once you're able to put Wisniewski in there and Ben Brown, like you said, and even if they do actually put Assad in there, that bullpen will be better. And then it'll also have more depth too, because you're obviously going to have to send some guys back to Iowa. And I think once you get certain guys back into roles that you think they can excel even better at, the team will take off. So to me, it's like what me and Luke have been saying since all these injuries, specifically with Bellinger and Suzuki, just treading water, man. And somehow, some way, they could both be on the team at the end of this week or sometime this week. But it's good to get Steele back. Just with the bullpen, to me, do I think it's a problem? Yes. Does it need some fine tuning? Does it need help? Does it need a closer? Yes. But I don't necessarily think it's like the biggest problem that the Cubs have. To me, the biggest problem right now is just injuries. And they got to get healthy. And once you're able to do that, it allows guys to go back into certain roles that they're used to playing in and they've excelled in.
Well, hopefully we get healthy this week. We have the Padres coming to town to Wrigley starting Monday. So game time 6:40 at Wrigley Field on Monday. Tuesday 6:40. Wednesday 1:20. Off day Thursday. Cubs fly to Pittsburgh for a Friday start time of 5:40. A Saturday start time of 3. And then a Sunday or Mother's Day start time of 12:30. Health, again, hopefully on the way. Bellinger, Stan News, be on the lookout for that. You guys have a show, tomorrow, Monday?
Yeah.
Okay. Pre and post game?
I assume. I plan on going to work tomorrow, Brendan.
Well, you know what? Hopefully that's the case. So
Jake's going to have to be calling me, telling me that I can't come into work today. And I hope he doesn't call me to tell me that something bad happened.
So you'll have the standard crew throughout the week. And then Corey will be back next Sunday. So we'll have our typical Sunday recap with Corey next week. I might be going to Chicago by the end of the month. We'll see what happens. I might go in studio. Last time I was there, I kind of saved the Cubs potential sweep against the Cardinals, and I had a beer bet that I need to redeem myself with. So hopefully we get to redo that again. Yeah. But yeah, 21 last thoughts here. 21-14. Health on her way. Assad shoving. Tyone looking great. Shota continues to do well. Morel is on a hot streak. Hopefully Dansby breaks out of it. A lot of bullpen chatter. There's a lot to think about, but overall, 21-14 is a good place to be in. So we'll leave it there. Again, guys coming at you tomorrow, Monday, for pre and post, and we'll see you next week. So as always, go Cubs.
We all silly like the mayor.